Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us for this week's Thursday with AARP Wisconsin show. I am Amber Miller, your host. And before we get to our guest, just as a friendly reminder, if you have any questions or comments during the show, you can post them below on Facebook.com or our YouTube page, and we will make sure to get to them. So, as always, please visit the AARP Wisconsin website. Should you need any information on upcoming events, advocacy, volunteer opportunities, you can find all of that at aarp.org/Wisconsin. Please also remember we're always looking for great AARP volunteers or volunteers in general to join our AARP family. So if you are interested in volunteer opportunities throughout the state, whether they're in person or virtual, you can go to the website below, which is aarp.org. I want the number 2 volunteer. You'll find information about the volunteer opportunities, and you can also fill out an application. And once you do that, you'll hear back from one of our staff members, and hopefully we can get you to join our volunteer family. So once again, you can find all that information below. Please also remember that elections are right around the corner. And so this is an opportunity to make your voice heard. And unfortunately, there's some confusion, which might make it harder to cast our ballots. So it's more important than ever to get the most updated information. So there's 2 things you can do. You can visit aarp.org/WI votes, or you can text WI votes to 22777, and this will take you to the AARP website. You could get information about, absentee ballots, information on resources regarding your polling place. This really is your one-stop shop for information on the upcoming election. So once again, you could go to the website or text WI votes to 22777. So the entire month of July celebrates Independent Retailer Month. And of course, the month-long observance offers an opportunity for us to show local small businesses appreciation, because we know that small businesses are the backbone. So we're going to kick off the show by talking with Jeffrey Sachse, founder of Raleigh Point Economic Advising, and he actually studies small business trends in Wisconsin. So we're going to welcome Jeffrey to the show.
Hi, Amber. Happy afternoon.
Happy afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. We so appreciate it. And Jeff, would you be so kind to pronounce your last name?
Sure, it's Sachse, so it's Sock with a hard C.
Love it. Thank you so much. So Jeff, I'll just kind of turn it over to you. We know, once again, small businesses are just so important to our economy, to our communities. So what are some trends that you have seen, especially during the last 2 years during COVID?
Sure. So first of all, obviously I would be remiss if I didn't give a quick shout out to some of my favorite independent retailers. Yeah. Beginning with AJ Aschenbrenner and Teresa Kronforst at Schrader's Department Store in Two Rivers, which is celebrating its 120th anniversary as one of the few independent department stores left in Wisconsin. As well as Emily Ristigan at Screaming Conuts in the High Lift, who again has been racking up awards and recognitions, and has opened her third business, or is opening her third business, and just turned 21 years old.
Wow.
So, through my experience and through the experience of the firm, we've had the opportunity to really engage a lot with, a variety of independent retailers to really understand the challenges that they have, both in terms of accessing their markets, as well as really trying to understand the logic of what makes an independent retailer special. Because I think, again, when you think about what's happened over the pandemic, a lot of the tools that big retailers had to pivot to in order to successfully weather the pandemic, small retailers didn't have or haven't had those same tools. And so as a consequence, the conversations that happen in among an independent retailer about things like e-commerce, or about building social media presences, building events, bringing in new product lines, those are more difficult and complicated questions than may happen, in a large department store or a large national retailer. And so as a consequence, every one of the conversations and every one of the trends that we saw during the pandemic was both much slower to realize among our independent retail community and at much lower rates than we saw, again, generally nationally. And so when you think about the things that make an independent retailer special, the things that you find much more broadly are, one, the fact that, an independent retailer has the opportunity to provide products, either products that they make themselves, products that they source from additional like-minded retailers, or in some instances, products that you can't find anywhere else. And above and beyond that, what you do find among those same retailers is that because of the very specialized nature of what they do, a lot of what they sell in terms of their product and service focuses on the service and the customer service that they provide to customers. Whether it's, an independent clothing store that also offers alteration services, to an outdoor store, an outdoor product store or a nursery that may offer some kind of subscription service for fertilizer or bird feed. These are all things that independent retailers offer and can offer because of the fact that their focus is really on a much stronger commitment to and a focus on the customer. And so as a consequence, again, in this growing world of e-commerce, when you consider the distance and the very short distance between the independent retailer and their customer base, a lot of the things that they do in terms of that very personalized service don't translate well, in a digital world. So again, as we are now entering into really the third year of the pandemic, and it's still front of mind for a lot of people, including this audience, that we know that our independent retailers are still struggling with the very same problems that they had experienced back in April of 2020, but are in a much better position to meet those challenges now because of other things that have happened, ranging from the diversification of suppliers. So for example, if I talking with most of the retailers that I have over the past several weeks, most are much more optimistic about product availability for this holiday season compared to the last two. And so as a consequence, what they're looking to do in terms of promotions for the holiday season are very similar to what you see in the big box retailers, because they aren't that as concerned about running out of product. So they're encouraging people to come in early, of course, but they know that there will still be product on the shelves for those last minute gift buyers.
And Jeff, so if you're just joining us right now, we are celebrating as July is Independent Retailer Month. So of course we know shopping small and supporting local is so important. And Jeff, why do you feel like small businesses, like how do they bring value to the community? Because sometimes it is easier, and it's not that we're anti-big box, we're just pro little box by all means. But if you could talk a little bit about how that does bring value to the community.
Well, I think one of the reasons why independent retailers are so important is because of the fact that by and large, most communities need to have a strong independent retail community for their downtowns to be vibrant. In many instances, independent retailers can work in much smaller footprints than larger national retailers can. And in many instances, again, those independent retailers have also had a history of really establishing their presence in our downtowns. So that's one of the reasons why they're important. The other thing that I think matters a lot is the fact that if you're an independent retailer, you're not really beholden to any brand or any specific supply chain. So as audience needs or your market needs change, you can pivot and find different products to meet those needs. And similarly, if a customer comes in and wants something that may not necessarily be on the shelves, that independent retailer has a much better ability to actually find that product. So the service then is, again, more customer focused and more customized. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, Jeff, what are for our viewers who maybe supporting local is not maybe something they do, or they do very little of. What would be some feedback or ways that, what's a good first step to be like, I'm going to maybe shift my way of thinking, or maybe shift some of my budgeting to support the local small businesses?
Well, I think the thing that is important to think about when you think about shifting to a working with independent retailers is really the uniqueness of the product that they may offer. So one of the things I always recommend people is, if you're interested in exploring an independent retailer, think about your next special occasion. Whether it's an anniversary, a birthday, more recently a graduation party, and explore those independent retailers for gift ideas. Because again, one of the things that we find with, again, a lot of the products that independent retailers stock is they're products that tell a story, and products that are more connected to their local surroundings. So as a consequence, again, when you're giving that gift from an independent retailer, you're able to tell that story, and it has a deeper meaning than simply buying something from Amazon or getting a Target.com order shipped. And what it then does is, of course, it makes the buying process and the shopping process more intentional, because you're looking for a product specific to the person you're buying it for. And the other thing that I would suggest is that, again, when you're thinking about supporting independent retailers, that same type of exploration extends beyond, your traditional storefronts, to including, support of vendors at farmers markets, support of vendors at craft fairs. Again, as you're out and about this summer, stop at a local craft fair, or if you see a farmer's market, in a downtown on a weeknight, just stop and walk around, because it'll give you a much better sense of the community that you're visiting. And, similarly, what we find is that in speaking with those retailers, they oftentimes have relationships with other retailers, either in their community or in other communities. So even in thinking about, the question of, if you're visiting and you find something that you really like but want to purchase it closer to home, those retailers can tell you where else to find it.
And Jeff, my last question would be, from a different perspective of somebody who's watching this, hearing you, who maybe has an idea to start a business, what advice would you give to them, especially in the climate that we are, trying to get back to somewhat of a normal world during COVID? What advice would you give to somebody who's thinking about starting a business?
Well, I think the most important thing that any new business owner needs to find is, they need to find where their market is. And in many instances, again, independent retailers are fortunate in some way, because they've found a local market that they can service, where for a lot of small business owners, they start out not recognizing that they may be serving a much larger market that may not be close to home. So as much as, again, I think that the connection between independent retail and e-commerce has gotten, a lot of bad press, especially with the Amazon.com era, more broadly. E-commerce and a digital order fulfillment is the lifeblood of any new small business. Simply because of the fact that, again, you can facilitate sales at a much smaller inventory volume than you would need to stock if you were stocking an entire storefront. Correct. So focus on really understanding what your market needs and what products you can serve to that market. And really, again, there is no hard and fast rule to this, but I've always recommended that, for new businesses, you want to be in charge, you want to be securing at least 60% of your product comes from sources that you control, or that you have great relationships with. Because that other 40% can churn across seasons or across suppliers.
Correct.
But again, if you have more than half of that product that you know is going to be there, when you open that storefront, your shelves will always seem full. And you won't necessarily have people that will come in and leave because they can't find something in their size, or they can't find something in a color. And that's one of the biggest challenges from moving from an e-commerce platform, where when a product's not available, you simply take down the listing, to a storefront where if you have shelf space or a product and there isn't any, people will notice a lot more easily.
Great. And Jeff, there is one question that came up, and then I'm also going to ask our next guest this question, but this is from Jim. One of my issues with big box is the customer service can be horrible. No one answers the phone, and if they do, they're not helpful. Do you have any advice to retailers to emphasize that personal service in an effort to compete?
Sure. Again, I think that's really a hallmark of most independent retailers. One of the other things that I know that most independent retailers have done during the pandemic is they've really focused on cultivating their social media presences. So most of the retailers that I am friends with have very active Instagram and Facebook accounts, and they're also very responsive in those accounts. So, for example, if Schrader's department store posts a picture of a pair of shoes that my wife likes, I can message that Facebook account and see if that shoe is available in my wife's size, which is not necessarily something you can do with a big box retailer. But I think that, again, the question of customer service is really one of the dialogue between customer and company. That to be stronger advocates as consumers, we have to have a better sense of what it is that we want from our retailers, and also have a better sense of what it is that they can provide at the store level in order to satisfy those needs. Because as soon as, from a big box perspective, what you want to do extends beyond the control of the store manager, then it's much less clear as to who you go to, who you go to, who you interact with, and whether your needs will be satisfied. So, there is still a lot of value in the shopping local ethos, even in working in a big box environment, to focusing on the things that they have rather than the things that they may advertise on their website.
Absolutely. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today. We always appreciate your insight when it comes to anything to do with the economy, but specifically small business. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Amber, and have a great day.
Thanks, you too. So next, we are lucky enough to actually have a small business owner here with us today. So I'd love to introduce Tracy Hamilton, and he is the owner of Heartland Graphics in Monroe, Wisconsin. Hi, Tracy.
Hello, Amber. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Good. Fantastic.
Good. So I was wondering, maybe we could kick off if you could tell maybe a little bit about yourself and your business for our viewers who maybe are not familiar with your business.
Yeah, we're located downtown Monroe, Wisconsin. It's a screen printing, embroidering shop. We have a large retail front that carries Monroe cheesemaker ware, besides Wisconsin Badgers items, and all the foamation stuff from the cheese. Got to have the cheese wedges and everything. So, yeah, it's going well. We've been in business since 1994.
Okay.
And I love being part of Monroe, Wisconsin.
Absolutely. So, and Tracy, what inspired you to open your business?
Well, my background is I have an associate degree in marketing from Blackhawk Tech, and I just wasn't ready. I wasn't going anywhere. I still want to I love doodling and the whole work. So I went to Western Wisconsin Technical College in La Crosse, got a commercial art degree there, done with La Crosse, and I'm like, I want to move to Madison. So I get to Madison, and I have a choice between taking the screen printing job or the old Music Land. Remember the Music Lands?
Oh, yes, I do. Yeah.
The assistant manager there. Well, luckily, I took the screen printing position and learned the trade. So that's way back in 1990. And then we moved back to Monroe, had a child, and worked for some screen printers down here. And luckily, this position came up, and ownership for a company or for buying this retail shop that was already existing. We've taken it and made it bigger and stuff. So started out in a little warehouse garage, and now we're in a nice retail space that, like I said, 27 years later.
Wow, good for you. And being an entrepreneur, could be scary. It is scary because of the unknown. You just don't know. But what do you like the most about being an entrepreneur or small business owner?
I love being part of Monroe. I really do. I think it's just so fantastic. You're always working with the schools or a nonprofit or a benefit that's coming up. And you kind of got a buzz of what's going on in the city. You get to help out. I'm really involved with Main Street Monroe and in downtown Monroe, so I just love being part of everything. And I really feel like the screen printing retail shop is just a great way to expand and give back. And yeah, I really enjoy it very much. Monroe is a great city to be part of.
Great. Well, I'm in Milwaukee, and I feel
Yeah.
like we might have to arm wrestle because I feel like Milwaukee is pretty great too. But you're really talking about Monroe, and I absolutely, yeah, I could tell your passion for the city. So Tracy, now we talked about all the great things about being an entrepreneur, and what are some challenges that you faced as being an entrepreneur, and how did you overcome that? And it could be pre-COVID, during COVID. If you have a couple stories.
Yeah, it's funny. The first few years, we're really learning the product, really learning, what works, what clicks, what the customers want. Learning your catalogs, learning what I can do well and what I can't do well. And it's a lot of trial and error. And thank goodness Monroe stuck with me. And then you also got two babies at the same time. You're trying to raise the children. You're working long hours. It's just funny. All those things way back. But I admit. The hardest part's been the last 3 years. It's really been the biggest change I've ever seen. In the last few years, I wrote notes. I mean, my wife's joined us, which I love, and she's fantastic. But now it's the thing is like, okay, we can't go home and talk about work every night. You know what I mean? We have a balance right there. We've got loss of employees like we've never had before. It's tough to get stock. Prices are skyrocketing, and so do you try to balance that? I don't want to gouge, but I know get a profit, but we're trying not to raise prices. Larger shipping timelines. This is just one item that just throws me. Everything came from Chicago and Minneapolis before. Now we're getting stuff from Texas. Well, there's a week of shipping right there. So, so with the screen printing and embroidering part of it, that's a whole extra week. Production time or waiting, so we used to turn things around in 2 weeks. Now it's all 2 weeks to a month now, so just little difference like that. Just weird things. One thing we learned, we just have to be open with the customer and say not available, how long it's going to take, so luckily our customers have been so fantastic to us and held in. So
I was going to say, when you were telling that story, I think we all need to remember some of the struggles or some of the issues that small businesses are facing, and being patient and not blaming the small business owner on some issues that you just can't control. I do know, Tracy, I've definitely heard employees have been difficult. And so you said you've experienced that the last couple of years.
Yeah, we really have, as of recently as yesterday afternoon. So,
God. Well, we appreciate you being on the show then, because you probably are even busier. And Tracy, what advice would you give to a small business, somebody who's looking to start a business as an independent retailer? What's some advice that you would give to them?
Yeah, I personally think you need different areas of bringing income in. You definitely need to, like us, we have the beautiful retail store, but that's really only 15%. We're about 2 blocks off the square of Monroe. So retail, we could not survive in retail. We have to have the screen printing, the embroidering, the customizing. We've added things like banners, yard signs, promotional stuff. We've also we're now a pick up and drop off spot for dry cleaning. So
oh my gosh,
it's been fantastic.
Wow.
Stop doing it. I'm not sure if it's temporary, but we're bringing faces in we've never seen before, and I love it.
That's great.
So my point is, you have to find different ways. If it's maybe online sales, whatever. But I really don't think in this day and age you can really just sell clothing in a tiny store. You need to have other ways of bringing income in. So being creative is very important. Your marketing is so important. Having a professional look, acting professional. Customer service is still so important. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And that's where we can benefit over the big box stores. Yeah.
Absolutely.
We're only getting 20 orders a day. They're getting 1,000 orders a day. so we can definitely.
Yeah, I do have to say I really appreciate the advice of diversifying your revenue streams, and the dry cleaning thing I find amazing, and it's such a great way to bring people to your business that are like maybe they didn't know were there, or maybe that you can help them. So I appreciate so much that advice, Tracy, that you give to our small business owners. And Tracy, where if people would like to find more information about your business, where could they go?
Yeah, Facebook, we have a Heartland Graphics page there. We have a website that's not the greatest, but it's a good website. But otherwise, come down to Monroe, Wisconsin. We're behind the post office. We'd love to see you.
And you should be the unofficial mayor from Monroe, Wisconsin, because you love your city, and I so appreciate that. And Tracy, it's just been so good to talk with you, and we just wish you great success with your small business, and congratulations on your 27 years of being in business. So thank you for joining us.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Take care.
And as always, we like to plug upcoming events that might be of interest to you. So this Friday, there's Movies for Grown-Ups. The movie Radium, which I have seen, it's very good. It's based on a true story. July 26th, so New Options Caregivers are using to reduce care at home challenges. July 27th, lecture, The History of London in 7 Buildings. July 28th, the movie Footloose, which is my coworker Darren's favorite movie. He actually talks about it all the time. So when you're watching it, please think of him. And then also August 2nd, if you are in the Milwaukee area, we invite you to the Wisconsin Shred Fest at McGovern Park Senior Center. We would love if you could pre-register, because you actually can get in the fast track lane. So you can find all that information below or the website. Small Dollar Big Impact is a grant that we provide to local nonprofits, municipalities, and similar. So if you have a really fun, cool, creative, innovative idea that you would like to bring to your community, we invite you to apply for it. Applications are due August 16th. You could go to the website below, which is aarp.org/WISDBI, which stands for Small Dollar Big Impact. You can also see past winners. So if you're looking for some maybe ideas, you can see them there. For next week's show, it's National Intern Day. So we will be bringing in our fabulous intern, Cosette, who has just been amazing to work with. And we know that interns provide so much support to businesses. So we will be bringing her. So that'll be next Thursday, July 28th at noon. So I want to thank you guys so much for joining us today. Feel free to share this on your Facebook or YouTube page, and maybe start thinking about some local small businesses that you can support within your community. So we appreciate you being here, and we look forward to seeing you next week. And until then,